Welcome back to our Facebook Live series. My name is Shelly Whittam and I am the director here at the Addison TreeHouse, a local nonprofit co-working space that focuses on providing the resources that entrepreneurs and startups need to start, build, and grow their businesses. I am here today with Kim O'Neill, the founder of Cause Studio, and we are going to be talking with her about her entrepreneurial journey. Kim, I'm excited to have you here.
I'm glad to be back. You know, this is home for me as it relates to my introduction into the startup community here in DFW. So it's nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course, you're always welcome. So if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, talk about where you're from, your background.
Yep, so I'm Kimberly O'Neill. I am a native New Yorker. I am a mentally retired, everybody knows that I say that. I'm a mentally retired senior government executive. I spent about 20 years in local governments around the country, New York, Washington, D.C., ended up in Texas for an opportunity to work for the city of Fort Worth, and woke up one day and said, I don't want to do this anymore, and literally gave 90 days notice and walked away.
Wow.
Like with no plan. I'm a former city manager. I'm the youngest African-American woman to be appointed a city manager in the country. And just really rooted in community. I love community and doing community work, and I think that's why I stayed in government for so long. You know what you do well, you know how you are able to impact, but there was something different that was calling me back into the community in a different way.
Awesome. And so is that sort of how you got involved in the nonprofit?
It is. So I would honestly say that I probably got started in the giving back community service part, I guess, of my personality. 14, 15-ish wasn't an option in my household. My parents just had me involved in everything, involved in political campaigns and giving back and volunteering and giving back in church and everywhere else. It wasn't an option. Get up, go to church and give back to the church and those types of things. And when I interned, I had an internship in college that turned into a really great opportunity for me. And then started doing some lobbying work for another nonprofit after college. And when I relocated to Washington, D.C., I think that's where my connection with the nonprofit industry was solidified.
Mm-hmm.
I ran the nonprofit for Pro Football Hall of Famer Darryl Green, who plays for the Washington Redskins. I know I'm in Dallas Cowboys territory, but it
yes,
is what it
are.
is. And I love Mr. Green. He's still a mentor and a really good friend of mine. But I ran his organization, which a lot of professional athletes, they start these organizations because their agent told them to have some level of a tax shelter. But I got to work with somebody that said, I don't even want my name on it anymore. I want this for the community. I want to make sure that the kids are taken care of. Mm-hmm. And I really got to understand the business side of running a nonprofit organization and what it meant to really commit to the community before you commit it to yourself. And I think that's where it really started taking shape.
Absolutely. And so Cause Studio, how did Cause Studio come about?
So when I quit, I had this goal to sleep for 3 months. I didn't want to work anymore. When you're working 70, 80 hours a week, you work in a 24-hour operation, and so you technically never get off. There was nothing that I wanted to do greater than sleep. Mm. And 2 weeks into that, Mr. Green called me and said, I heard you quit your job and I need you here. And I started consulting for him for a few months, and then that transitioned into helping him in a nonprofit sector again. And so I was working with professional athletes. I decided to, just start consulting for professional athletes, but helping them to partner with existing nonprofits. Don't start your own. Let's just take your time, talent, and/or financial resources and match you with the right type of organization. Well, through that process, nonprofits started coming to me saying, well, we want a professional athlete. I'm like, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
They are my client, and I am vetting. I'm taking the responsibility of making sure I'm putting them with a healthy organization. But I realized that there was a need to serve smaller nonprofit organizations. Typically, training is geared towards the established nonprofit professional, the entry-level nonprofit professional who's working in an established organization, but there's really nothing for the community advocate or just the community resident who sees a problem in the community and decides to come up with a solution. There's no real training. Nobody is teaching people how to walk through that process. Mm-hmm. There are services that help people to fill out the paperwork, but no one to really say, how do I build this business that just happens to be a charity? And I met with a woman who asked me she had an idea, and I said, I really can't take your money. This is a startup idea and a nonprofit. Anything you were going to pay me, you need to really put this back into an organization that you're going to create. I just felt like ethically it was wrong.
Sure.
And she said, well, my brother's giving it to me as a gift, so when can we meet? And after that meeting with her, I said there has to be a solution for people like her who really have a great idea, who have an idea that probably can be scaled and sustained if they do it the right way. And literally, I started fleshing out some things on paper. The Dex monthly newsletter came out probably a few days after that, and there was an opportunity with another organization, a link for a pitch competition, and I entered, and they sent me an email a few days later and said, you can pitch on next Saturday for this contest, but we need your deck by 2 or 3 days before. So I created a deck overnight and pitched that Saturday and came in second.
All within a week.
All within a week.
Wow.
Of
Oh my gosh.
Of an idea. That is truly how Cause Studio started. It didn't have a name. I called it an expansion project from my for-profit business. I knew that in some way it needed to be a nonprofit to keep the access to quality training affordable, but I didn't have all of that done at that particular time. And I took the winnings and I started Cause Studio. I started mapping it out, figured out a name. In December of 2014, I figured out a name. January 31st of 2015, we launched in pilot.
And then in April of 2015, you moved into the treehouse.
I did. Well, no, actually, January 31st of 2015, we launched here.
Oh.
This was launch place.
Well, my records are off.
Yeah. No. So in terms of physically moving in, but we launched utilizing the space.
Awesome.
And then we started doing our work here. And at the end of April, so for your records, you're correct. April of 2015, I started partnering with UTD.
Okay.
And I got 3 interns, and this became home base for us. So this is our original home for Cause Studios. That's why I was saying it's great to be back, because this space, it meant a lot to me, and it still does mean a lot to me, but it really just helped me to keep something going for the community.
Absolutely. And so you talked about how Cause Studio came to be, and within a week it was, not
literally,
called Cause Studio.
Literally.
What is Cause Studio?
So Cause Studio,
how does it work?
So Cause Studio is a nonprofit initiative. Our mission is very simple. It's to reduce the number of failing nonprofits. I say in North Texas because that's our concentration right now. Our goal is to create better awareness for what the nonprofit sector does. Social enterprises are great, and I understand that's the way that we're moving, but nonprofits are not going away. If nonprofits go away, who's going to pick up the direct services that are being provided?
Sure.
And so we do that in 3 ways. What we are most well known for is our incubator. We have a 3-year incubator. So similar to the accelerated incubator programs that you see in the for-profit community, we do the same thing in the nonprofit community, but we do it over a 3-year period. I call it the infant, toddler, and kindergarten stage, right? Infants you do everything for. So through our application process, we select up to 10 organizations a year. They work with us for a 9-month period. During that first year, they're working with us every month. A 9-hour cohort-based curriculum-filled training class, and then one-on-one mentoring with that organization to figure out how to take that curriculum and bring it into their organization. At the end of every year, every organization probably leaves with 110 hours. It's on average 110 hours of training. The second year, it's the toddler stage. You ask a toddler if they need help. They say no, but they really do.
Right.
So we scale back the level of support. There's still a monthly touch point, except the cohort training is every other month, but there's still a monthly mentor training. And then the third year is the kindergarten stage. Don't drop me off at school, don't come in, don't embarrass me, I want this level of independence. So we actually switch the reins at that particular point. We have some structured workshops, cohort-driven workshops, but then we hand the hours over to the organizations, and they tell us when they want to meet and how they want to meet and what they want to talk about.
And so these organizations that are coming to you, is it an application process?
Yes.
How do you decipher a nonprofit that, maybe there's already an organization out there? Do you tell them to maybe, how do you work with them?
So our application process it's a rigorous process. It's not easy to get into. We take up to 10 organizations. This past year I took 5.
Wow.
And so there's an application that's completed. We have an independent panel that actually reviews the application. So I've actually removed myself out of the process.
Okay.
So even when I know people from the community, I really believe in the work, I'm allowing other experts in the startup community to help me evaluate these applications to see if it's worth it.
Sure.
So it's a lengthy application process. Anyone who passes based on our rubric is then invited into a panel interview. And then that panel interview, they also get scored. And then it's ranked. And so up to 10 we'll take from highest to lowest. That's when I actually come into play. So I'll look at the rankings and I will decide of these people that are qualified to come in. I then look and say, but who deserves to be in? So that's when I come back into play.
Wow. And so these startups, there's nonprofit startups, how are they different, or how is an entrepreneur who is starting a nonprofit, is it different than being an entrepreneur who's starting a for-profit business? How does that vary?
I think yes and no. I think the similarities are typically when you're starting a nonprofit organization, you're typically trying to bootstrap just like a for-profit entrepreneur, a traditional for-profit entrepreneur would be, but there are different rules to the game. And there's more independence with having a for-profit business than nonprofit. Big key difference is no one owns a nonprofit, right? You fill out the paperwork, you're forever the founder, but you can always be removed, right? And so that's one of the bigger things. And then you have to pay attention to the IRS regulations. You have to make sure you're doing certain filings. And a lot of people don't understand the business side of the charity, right? Because I look at nonprofits as a business that just happens to be a public charity.
Sure.
And that's the way that we actually train our organizations in the incubator, that we're first running a business. Then there's some nonprofit, some charitable types of things that we need to follow. And I think that that's part of the success. Typically the people that come to us, they've never raised any money. And if they have, it's been $5,000 or $10,000, a few grants here or there, some donations. Collectively so we just completed our second full program year. We did a 6-month pilot as well. So from pilot January 2015 through June of 2016, all of our incubated organizations collectively have brought in $1 million in cash.
Wow.
Right? So there's a method to what we're doing. There's a reason why. There's some ebbs and flows in that. There's some organizations that do better than others. There are organizations that are not invited back to year 2. Just because you're invited into year 1, there are milestones that you have to hit to get into year 2. The same thing to get to year 3. We are not trying to incubate people because they want to save the world. We're trying to incubate people that have something worth helping them to save the world.
Absolutely. And so you touched earlier on how social enterprise is a thing, and it's here to stay, but there's still a need for nonprofits. And so can you talk about how nonprofits are vital to the economy and the overall community development?
So I think we miss, a nonprofit that fails and they had employees, is now we now have people that are unemployed that are drawing on unemployment, right? And so if it's a scalable and sustainable nonprofit organization, and we can get these organizations to the point where they can get the funding and keep the funding to keep these people on their rolls, we've just contributed to the local economy, right? And if we look at, we have more than 28,000, we're probably over 30 now, right? Because these stats are really old. So more than 28,000 nonprofits just in North Texas alone. Of those, there's more than 121,000 jobs that come out of the nonprofit sector. Imagine if we really paid attention to these startup nonprofit organizations that have something worth scaling and worth helping to keep around. Imagine how many jobs we can put into the Texas economy. And so when we look at that, nonprofits collectively have, between cash and assets, have more than $178 billion in North Texas alone. But of that $178 billion, more than 83% have budgets under $100,000, which means we have a lot of organizations on paper, but not a lot of effective organizations. And so I want to help those close. The ones that are not doing anything, I wanted that. To me, that's helping to reduce the number of failing nonprofits in our sector. If we can help them do that before the IRS says we're revoking your status, then that's successful to me. But to have people just on rolls, and because I felt like I wanted to mentor kids 5 years ago, but now I'm not doing anything, but we still have this +1 on the rolls, it really hurts the nonprofit organization. If all the stuff that's happening with Uber, right? If we look at the for-profit side, all of the things that are happening with Uber, everybody's still going to pay attention to Lyft. One bad thing happens to one nonprofit, it doesn't even matter if it's in like industry. Everybody's going to say, that's why I don't mess with nonprofits. Right. So one failing nonprofit hurts all of us.
And so there are a lot of resources out there that help nonprofits. Can you talk about what some of those are and how you differentiate yourself? How Cause Studio does?
Yeah, so there are other incubators throughout the country for nonprofits. One key differentiation for us is that we are 3 years. We do stay with them the distance. We are curriculum based. We're also very hands-on. I am very confident in saying no one does training the way that we do. Most times you see in a nonprofit sector, there's training, there's PowerPoint presentations, you get this binder to take back, but very rarely do you have someone that's taking you through the process and figuring that out. And so that's a key differentiation for us. We have amazing resources in North Texas for nonprofits. But I feel like they're still very traditional, right? Nobody's trying to disrupt the way that we do nonprofit training.
Right.
If we keep doing things the way that we've always been doing them, we're going to get the same thing that we've been getting, which is failing nonprofits, or people not understanding the business side of nonprofits. I want to educate people to understand what you really have is a hobby. What you really have is a desire to go volunteer somewhere. What you really have is a desire to write a $5,000 check a year without a business entity. Let's do that. Right. And so I think we try to help people to understand that. So in addition to our incubator, we do community-based training. We have a signature workshop called So You Want to Start a Nonprofit, Now What? The goal with that is actually to discourage people from starting a nonprofit. We want to catch people before they fill out the paperwork and help them to figure out what are the other options, because most people think giving back just means I have to start a nonprofit.
And so the other options are volunteering with other organizations.
Volunteering, starting your own donor advised fund if you want to be able to control the money. Instead of doing your own 501c3, maybe doing a fiscally sponsored initiative, which means that you are not responsible for all of the filing, but there's another organization that's paying attention and is helping you through the financial process. So we want people to understand what all the options are so they make a more educated decision.
Sure. And can you talk to us a little bit about what the future of Cause Studio looks like? So you're in year 2 right now.
We're in year 2. We'll start our 3rd program year in October. And so I'm tired. As most founders are.
Absolutely.
The one thing that we won't have is founder syndrome. I'm very careful about making sure it's hard in the very beginning with people identify founders with the organization and they don't like to separate the two. I've been very open by saying 2020, I'm done with Cause Studio as the person running it on a day-to-day basis, because I want to give it to someone that's younger, more innovative, that can take the vision that I have and take it to another level. I don't want to have founder syndrome or find a larger organization that will maintain the integrity of what we're creating and then be able to expand it so that it's beneficial to the community until the community doesn't need it anymore. We are launching a fellowship, so we have an AmeriCorps Vista that's starting with us in a few weeks. I'm so excited, full-time. That's going to help me put together the framework for a fellowship program. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work and launch next fall to have full-time fellows actually placed in these startup nonprofits around North Texas to help them focus on capacity building. I'm launching our first conference geared towards training in a non-traditional way. So this next year, we're not taking a new incubator cohort this year because I committed to really focusing on the community building, the community development side of the work that we do. And I want us to be able to impact more numbers. And truth be told, I have a lot of work to do with these first 2 cohorts. They're doing amazing work. And I want to make sure that I have enough time to give them what they need, because I have a personal commitment to these organizations. And then just continue to build our team out, our team of volunteers, our team of interns and associates, and just our team of supporters, people that really just want to help us and understand the quality of the work that we're providing.
Sure. And so as a female founder, can you talk about your experience in being a female founder and also being an African-American female founder?
So I'm asked that a lot, right? And I think, after being in government for 20 years, after being young and African-American in government and moving up rather quickly, you learn how to position yourself well, right? And you learn to separate personal feelings from the business. And I think that I was able to bring that into being a founder. Being a founder of a nonprofit when people already don't see the value in nonprofits, being the founder of a nonprofit when everybody's yelling social enterprise, and being the founder of a nonprofit not a social enterprise, in a check-driven startup world. And so what's been important to me is just being able to make sure that I keep the mission of our organization in front of me, and making sure it's about the people that I serve first. It's never about me. Even when I get frustrated, I have to dust that off and get back to the work, because I made a commitment through this organization to be able to serve people a different type of way. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle. The things that I don't need to make big issues, I don't. I am absolutely okay being the only African American moving in a room, which sometimes does happen. Not as often anymore. When I first started in our region, I was probably one of two people of color. So it's not even just African American. We're just not represented a lot in the startup community. And I love the fact that I'm starting to see it. I'm loving the fact that when I go to events, that I have to go, oh my gosh, it's a whole lot of people here now.
Sure.
You know, so I'm even seeing the changes. But it definitely is a struggle at times. And then as a woman, I think that's probably the one thing that probably isn't my biggest issue. And I think because I've been trained by men, that's my personality, and so it takes a lot to rattle me.
Okay.
And so I can sit at the table with anybody, and that seat is mine at the table.
Absolutely,
no matter what.
It is well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved. And what I've also learned as a founder, and if you don't want me at the table, I just bring my own, and you're eventually going to move over because I'm here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love that. So you talked a little bit about the future. I want to kind of come back to where you were when you were at the Treehouse. What type of growth did you see here? What were some big milestones that you achieved while you were here at the Treehouse?
Gosh, so a team.
Okay.
To be able to have a space to meet and it not be Starbucks. To be able to contribute and network with people that could understand the struggles of being an entrepreneur, regardless of what kind of business that you were trying to grow.
Sure.
To watch people actually leave the Treehouse and get their own office space. And I think about Brenda and Pickup, and I remember when they were just at one table, and then one table became two tables, and then it was just a whole lot of people, and they just took over a room. So to actually watch somebody build their business, right, and for it to be a woman, and for it to be not someone that's in their 20s, for me, right, to me was tremendous. But just the camaraderie with people and just the support, I think that was really helpful. And then the sense of community too. There was something really genuine and authentic about the Treehouse and the people that were here when I was here in the very, very beginning. Whether or not they were pass-through folks, they were people that were here all the time. But it's always just been good. It's always just been a good feeling here.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And so you sort of just touched on that, but I do end all of my Facebook Live interviews with the question, what does co-working mean to you? We here at the Treehouse are a co-working space, and we want to know what it means to you.
Co-working is community. Co-working is family. Co-working is being able to admit that I failed, and co-working is being able to know that I can pick back up.
Yes.
It's a no judgment zone. It is a zone to let go of your crazy. It is a zone and a place where people get you without you having to try to explain what you're doing or why you do it or why you quit your job or why you're spending your money. It's just that place where people get it. It's also the place for people who are not sure if the entrepreneurial world is for them. It's a place that they can also just come and learn and just watch, even if they don't say anything. Yeah. And I think that's really been the benefit specifically for local co-working communities, those that were born and birthed out of the communities that were here. Not that just provide physical space, but there are other things, the programming, the connections, to be able to know somebody by name, for that person to know you by name, to see that person out in the community doing other things. Like that, to me, you can't get that anywhere. And when you're starting out, and you may not have the resources and the funds, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
But when you're starting out and I don't necessarily need anything but my computer and some Wi-Fi, and I don't want to be bothered with whether or not it's too cold in Starbucks today, this is the place. Come and pop a squat somewhere with your computer, and it works out well.
Yeah, drink our coffee and use our Wi-Fi.
Drink your coffee, get the Wi-Fi, have a printer here. What else do you really need, right?
Exactly.
Everything that you really need, you can find to start your business in the most lean way. And anybody who's starting a business and they're not sure and they're running out to get office space first, I'd actually discourage that and try co-working first. Save your money. Be around people who could probably answer a question and understand it, because depression also gets very real in co-working. I mean, not in co-working, in entrepreneurial, in the entrepreneurial world. And just being around somebody who can say, oh yeah, that happened to me last year, can make the difference in whether that settles in with you or if you're just able to brush it off your shoulders.
Right. That's a great answer. I think one of the best.
All right.
All right. Well, Kim, thank you so much for being here
Glad
today.
to be here.
It's always great to have you at the Treehouse, and as you know, or I hope you know, you are always welcome here.
Yes, I do.
And it's so great to see all of the wonderful things that Cause Studio is doing for the local North Texas community, and I just wish Cause Studio and you all the best.
Well, I'm glad to be back.
Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be live again next week at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday with the founders of NoiseAware, so be sure to tune in and hear about their entrepreneurial journey and kind of where they were at the Treehouse to where they are now. And you can always, if you missed this and you're just tuning in, you can always head over to coworkingiz.com and check out Kim's interview as well as all of our past interviews with our other DFW founders. So thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Great.